All right, welcome to the first verb review. Now that you guys have conquered nouns, you've read a lot of myth stories, and we're actually diving into the stage 12 stories now. But we really should take a look at verbs. Actually, the stage 12 grammar involves kind of like a verb recap, so this is sort of perfect that it works out this way. So as always, we want to take a look at some Latin sentences first. And these, I don't even remember they're from stage 4, these sentences here. So let's take a look at them, and we're going to focus on the verbs. So here we go. Ego sum cocuus, ego cenam cocuo. We always want to pronounce the Latin first before we dive into trying to understand what it means. So these two sentences illustrate, I think, an important thing about verbs in Latin, and the first thing we need to do is sort of identify, well, which words are verbs. Oh my gosh, let me backtrack a minute. I asked you guys a question when we started our noun review, and that question was, what's a noun? And I know that that's very third grade, but it's important to ponder that. So let's turn it around and ask, what's a verb? And I know most of you are like, come on, Mr. Allen, this is ridiculous. I've never actually met you yet, but I can already tell that you are a very silly person. And it's true, I am. So what is a verb? A verb, of course, is an action word. That's the most simple way to define it. You can have a sentence full of nouns, and those will make no sense unless there is some sort of action that occurs in the sentence. And so that action word is the verb. Now, interestingly enough, there is another type of verb which is found in this first sentence. It's not really an action. It's a verb. It's called a linking verb. And so that's why these two sentences here kind of illustrate pretty much all you need to know about verbs. Well, not all, but at least sort of the main idea of what you need to know about verbs in Latin. Ego sum cocuus. Where is our verb? It's right here. The verb sum, meaning I am. And the second sentence, ego cenam cocuo, where's the verb? Well, it's right here, cocuo. What does the first sentence say? It says, I am a cook. And the second sentence says, I am cooking dinner, or I cook dinner. So what do you notice about the linking verb in Latin? Well, look at the placement of it. It's usually placed in the middle of the sentence, or at least it's placed in between the two things, the two ideas that you are linking together. That would be I and cook. I am a cook. Think about going all the way back to the stage 1 sentences. Caecilius est pater. Caecilius is the father, right? Est is a linking verb. It's right there in between Caecilius and pater, linking together the fact that Caecilius and pater are the same person. And then the second sentence, ego cenam cocuo. Cocuo here is the verb meaning to cook. That's an action verb. And what do you notice about its placement in the sentence? Most often, verbs will be placed at the end of a sentence or the end of a clause or the end of a phrase, something like that. So there you go. Now let's check out this. Caecilius says, ego sum argentarius, ego pecuniam teneo. Let's take a look. First verb would be, of course, our friend sum. Let me put the highlighter on. It makes it easier. First verb is sum. I am a banker. And then ego pecuniam teneo. Where's our verb here? It's going to be teneo. I am holding money. Literally is what that says. Moving on. Pantagatus says, ego sum tonsor, ego barbam tondeo. This picture is very scary. Ego sum tonsor, I am a barber. Ego barbam tondeo, tondeo being our other verb. Notice how it's at the end. I am trimming a beard, or I trim the beard, or I cut the beard. Okay, look at Supax. That's how you pronounce his name. Supax. Ego sum venalicius. Remember, V's are always like W's. And then ego servum vendo. So sum, of course, is our verb. Ego sum, I am. This means I am a slave dealer. Ego servum vendo. I vendo, V-E-N-D-O. Think about vending machine. It means to sell. I sell a slave, or I am selling a slave. And then, oh, look at this guy. Nice eyebrows, by the way. Well, looks like they're painted on. He's a poet. Ego sum poeta. I am a poet. Ego versum recito. Recito being our verb. I recite the verse, or the rhyme, if you will. And then we've got a painter here. Ego sum pictor. I am a painter. Ego leonem pingo. I am painting, or I paint a lion. All right, any other sentences here? Yes, so here's the next thing you need to know about verbs, illustrated in these next sentences here. So here's Quintus doing his quintessential, get it? Oh, God. Little pose here with the left arm extended upwards and the right arm sort of like forming a bowl. And he says to Grumio, quid tu quoquis? And Grumio says, ego cenam quoquo. So looking at this, look at the first sentence. Quid tu quoquis, the question here. There's a verb there. Where is it? Well, if you said that it's quoquis, you are correct. But Mr. Allen, it doesn't end in an O, as in quoquo. What's up with that? Well, just like nouns change their spelling, they change their ending depending on how they're used in a sentence. Verbs change their endings too, depending on who the subject is. What's the difference between quid tu quoquis and ego cenam quoquo? The subject of quoquis is tu, meaning you. The subject of quoquo is ego, meaning I. Now your book is very generous, and they give you these pronouns tu and ego at first to help you. But once you learn your verb endings and the fact that anytime a verb ends in S, the subject is you, and anytime it ends in O, the subject is I, once you really learn and master that, you will notice that tu and ego go away. And in fact, in authentic Latin literature, those pronouns are hardly ever used. They're only used to really emphasize a point. Why? Because the subject of the sentence is embedded in the ending of the verb. Whoa, hold that thought. We'll get to it in just a minute. So Quintus says, what are you cooking? And he says, Grumio replies, I am cooking dinner. And then Quintus looks at his father. Oh, look at this. He's like, hey, come on, give me some of this money. Quintus says, quid tu tenes? Ooh, tenes. Achilles says, ego pecuniam teneo. Quid tu tenes? What are you holding? Achilles says, I am holding money. Again, S when you would be the subject, and O when I would be the subject. And then Quintus says, quid tu tondes? And the barber says, ego barbam tondeo. What are you trimming? I am trimming a beard. And then, oh, quid tu vendis? What are you selling? Ego servum vendo. I am selling a slave. Is Quintus stupid? Does he just not understand what is like happening right in front of his face? Oh, look, there's the hey, give me some of this. Little gesture again. Quintus says, quid tu recitas? Ooh, recitas. Ends in an S. You would be the subject. What are you reciting? The poet says, ego versum recito. I am reciting a verse. And so on and so forth. Quid tu pingus ego leonem pingo. What are you painting? I am painting a lion. Now here's something different. Metellus says, quis est tu? Remember we had earlier in our sentences, before this little bit, we had ego sum pictor. So sum would be how you would say I am. That's the linking verb. I am a painter. But to say you are, it would be, as you can see from this question, it would be S. Quis est tu? Who are you? And the slave girl says, ego sum Melissa. I am Melissa. Why would Metella need to ask this? She should know. They live in the same house. Metella says, quis est tu? Who are you? And he says, ego sum supax, I am. So I am, that would be ego sum. You are would be tu es. And so on and so forth. I think you get the picture here. So let's move on and talk about verbs. And for this part of the verb review, we're only going to be focusing on present tense verbs in Latin. In part 2, we'll cover imperfect and perfect tense verbs. So we do have to talk about, I do want to give credit, by the way, these notes here on verbs did not come from me. I've modified them over time, but I believe that they came from some teachers in Cobb County. I don't exactly know which ones, but I do want to say there are some Latin teachers in Cobb County who most likely made these particular notes. So give credit where credit's due. Okay, so we first of all have to talk about the fact that verbs have a specific language. So you'll need to know what these terms mean. All verbs have what's called a person, a number, and a tense. And let's talk about person for a minute. Well, there are 3 of them: first person, second person, and third person. First person would be I or we. Second person, you or y'all, since we're in the South. Third person, he, she, it, or they. Now, you could probably look at this and already figure out what number is. If person means who is the subject, because that's exactly what it means, the perspective of the verb, from whose perspective is it, who's the subject here. Number would be whether or not the subject is singular versus plural, I versus we, you versus y'all. So we've sort of covered 2 things all at once: number, singular, plural, and person, first, second, or third, because all verbs have a person and a number in Latin. And they also have a tense, which simply tells you when the action is occurring. There are 6 verb tenses in Latin. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're only going to focus on the present tense for now. But for those of you who want to know, all 6 verb tenses would be as follows: present, imperfect, perfect, pluperfect, future, and future perfect. And that's pretty much the order in which you will learn them. So by the end of this school year, I think you'll probably know all of them with the exception of the future perfect. It's used very rarely, and we'll cover that next year in Latin 3, although you might get a small crash course for it right before something called the National Latin Exam, which we'll talk about more when I get back. Okay, so putting it all together in the present tense, any verb which is in the first person singular would be translated as I verb, or I am verbing, as in I am holding the money, or I hold the money. Second person singular, you tenes, right? You are holding. What are you holding? Third person singular, he, she, it holds. So Caecilius holds the money would be Caecilius pecuniam tenet, T-E-N-E-T. Most of the verbs that you came across in Latin 1 last year actually ended in the letter T, which always means the subject is he, she, or it. The rest of this is pretty self-explanatory. So let's move on fairly quickly. So here's the first thing you need to know. We talked about how the endings change depending on who the subject is, and here are the present tense verb endings in Latin. You see that first person singular is O, and I neglected to put a long mark over this O. That's important. And then, of course, you have S for second person singular. We saw many examples of those in the sentences just now. Third person singular ends in T. We just mentioned that. Now, what may be less familiar to you would be the plural forms. Mus is when a verb ends in mus, the subject is we, and it's a present tense verb. If it ends in tis alone, the subject is y'all, present tense verb. Y'all are verbing. And if it ends in nt, the subject would be they. Now, a lot of times students will see a verb and they'll say, hey, it ends in t, so it must be he, she, it, right, as a subject. But then you go to translate it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So you have to pay very careful attention to sometimes the letter that comes right before the T. If it happens to be an NT, the subject is actually they and not he, she, it. Let's do a little bit of practice. I do have a song for this. And I have no idea who wrote the song. I think it's been around for like 30 years. And then we'll move on. So let's take the verb pour. You saw this verb used quite a bit last year. Portat. He, she, it carries. Now here is the entire verb, present tense. It's conjugated out in the present tense here. Porto would be I carry. What would portas be? You carry. Portat, he, she, it carries. Portamus, we carry. Portatis, y'all or you all carry. Portant, nt, they carry. Now what about sedeo? What would that be? Take a look at it. Ends in O. And so that is going to be, I should probably make that a darker color. There we go. I sit, or I am sitting. How about coquit? Even if you don't know what the verbs mean, try and figure out who the subject is just based on the ending. You got T, which means that the subject is he, she, or it. Quairo would be, subject is I. Quairo means I am asking. Laudas ends in an S. Subject would be you. You are praising, or you praise. How about dormimus? Now sometimes you might be tempted to say, hey, it ends in an S, so it's got to be you, right? But in this instance, you have to look at the entire ending. mus. The subject is we. We sleep, or we are sleeping. Gustant. Well, hey, it ends in a T, right? Subject's got to be he, she, it. Well, look just a little bit beyond the T. You're going to see an N. NT would be they. They are, what's gusto mean in Latin? It means to taste. They are tasting. Saluto. Let me draw the long mark over the O. Ends in O would be I, would be the subject. I am greeting, or I say hello. Redis ends in an S here. So subject is you. You are returning. Laborat. Look at the word. You see an English word here, labor. Laboro means to work. It ends in a T. He, she, it works, or is working. Vides. Vides ends in an S. Subject is you. Video means to see, so this means you are seeing, or you see, or you are looking. I think you probably get the picture. We'll do a few more here. Habemus. Habemus. Ooh, look. Ends in an M-U-S. M-U-S. Mus means we. So, therefore, that's we, and habeo means have. So we have. For those of you who might be Catholic, every time a new pope is appointed by the College of Roman Catholic Cardinals at the Vatican City, they come out onto the balcony and they say, Habemus Papam, which means we have a pope. Okay, really, we have a father, I guess. Clamatis, clamatis. You see that it ends in an S, and you might be tempted to say that the subject is you. But look before the S, and you see that actually it ends in TIS, so the subject is y'all, or you all. So y'all shout. All right? I think that we probably get the gist of this at this point. And now we have to talk about this. How do you say I am, you are, he is, just by itself when it's the linking verb as an ego sum quintus? Well, here is that irregular. It's irregular because it doesn't fit, for the most part, it does not fit a pattern, although you can discern some patterns within it, and we'll talk about that in a second. So this is our irregular, pesky linking verb, the verb that means to be, or the verb that means am, or is, or are. It is irregular in every single language, and Latin is no exception. So here it is. Sum would be I am. Es, you are. Est, he, she, it is. Sumus is we are. Estis is y'all are. And sunt is they are. Now, if you can see, I can't tell if these are in a different color. They should be. I've been told in the past that they are. I'm really colorblind, as you guys are going to discover. The ending letter/letters should be in a different color than the beginning, because with the exception of the first person singular ending of M, this verb is regular in the sense that you still have S to indicate second person singular, T to indicate third person singular, moose to indicate first person plural, tis to indicate second person plural, and nt in unt to indicate third person plural. So there it is. Sum es est, sumus estis sunt. When do you use this verb, this linking verb, as opposed to an action verb? Well, you use it when you are just linking two concepts together. I am happy. Ego sum laetus. Okay. We are students would be nos sumus discipuli, when you're just sort of linking two concepts together. And then, of course, that's the only time you use the irregular linking verb in Latin. Every other verb is going to be an action verb, and if it's a present tense action verb, it will have those endings that we discussed, which would be right here. Now it's song time, and this is for the regular present tense verb endings. I don't know who wrote this song. Like I said, it's been around for a long time. Now, many of you probably watched Mickey Mouse back in the day. Mickey Mouse Funhouse or Clubhouse, whatever it was called. And the original Mickey Mouse song went something like this. M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E, Mickey Mouse Funhouse. And you can Google that or YouTube it or whatever and find it. I know that the song changed when you guys were kids, so this really becomes more like a chant, I guess. Bum ba da bum ba da bum ba dum ba dum bum ba dum bum ba dum bum ba dum ba dum. And anyway, here it is. It goes like this. Maybe this year we can work on making a new present tense song for the 21st century. But hey, students tend to remember this one, so let's do it. It goes like this. O means I, S means you, T means he, she, it. Moose means we, tis means y'all, and T means they, present tense. Why the gasp at the end? I have no idea, but you have to do it, or else I'll get mad. One more time. You can see that we give you the ending, and we tell you who the subject is. We tell you the tense, present tense. Hey, it's all there in the song. O means I, S means you, T means he, she, it. Moose means we, tis means y'all, and T means they, present tense. So there it is. Now, our new Latin teacher to Grady this year taught me this song, and I'm still kind of fuzzy on it. She has a song that she came up with for the irregular present tense, sum es est, sumus estis sunt. And it goes to the tune of an Italian song called Funiculi Funiculi, which is all about, sounds really bizarre, it's all about something called a funicular, which is basically like a cable car. And the song is about a cable car that went up and down Mount Vesuvius for a long time, until 1944 when Vesuvius erupted again and destroyed part of the cable car line. But people wrote like this ode to the cable car, to the funicular, and it's called Funiculi Funiculi. If you YouTube it and look up Andrea Bocelli's version of it, it's really cool because he's actually singing Funiculi Funiculi in the Colosseum in Rome. So you get like all kinds of classical stuff in there. But you'll recognize the main part of the song because it goes like this. Bum 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 ba dum ba dum. Bum 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 ba dum ba dum. Bum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum. Bum ba dum ba dum bum bum ba dum ba dum. So I'm going to try my best to sing this the way that Miss Leonard, the new Latin teacher, sings it. And we'll practice the song. So it goes, sum es est, sumus estis sunt. Sum es est, sumus estis sunt. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, y'all are, they are. Sum es est, sumus estis sunt. That was a mouthful. Let's try it one more time. Sum es est, sumus est sunt. Sum es est, sumus est sunt. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, y'all are, they are. Sum es est, sumus est sunt. Okay, so last little bit is that for the verbs, we are going to start to fill in the verb chart, which is also on that single most important piece of paper I ever gave you, or that you will ever receive in this class. It's on the back of the noun chart. And you can see verb chart. There's a lot of stuff up here. Just ignore it for right now. This is what we really want to focus on. This present tense column, we're only going to be filling in the top part, the top chart for now, because it is, you can see, the top chart is for verbs which are active. The bottom is for verbs which are passive. We won't worry about passive until next semester. So present tense, you can see that here are the persons over here, first, second, and third, singular, first, second, third, plural, and present tense endings would be O with that long mark over it, st, mus, tis, und. The translation for it would be, verbs, am, is, or are verbing. So there you have it. Next time for part 2, we'll learn the imperfect and then skip over here to the perfect tense as well. All right, take care.